dealer.
All right, let's go right to the phone and bring in the one and only Joe Theismann. You know him as a Super Bowl winning quarterback for the Washington Redskins, a 12-year NFL career, MVP of the league in '83, College Football Hall of Fame, Redskins Ring of Fame, now works for the NFL Network. Hey, Joe, how are you?
I'm great, guys. How are you?
Great. You know, Joe, one of the reasons, besides talking football, we wanted to bring you on was I saw this picture of you and Andre the Giant from 40 years ago.
What?
People think the NFL has this major PR machine churning right now, and they do.
Yeah.
But Joe might have started that with the off-season photograph. We got it right behind us, Joe. Tell us how this came to be.
Well, it's really funny. George Allen, when I played for George in the early 70s, he was always someone who tried to create notoriety and publicity for the Washington Redskins in the off-season. Back in the 70s and 80s, unlike it is today, now today football is 12 months a year with the draft, with the combines, and so many different things. Back in that era, there was a dead period after the Super Bowl until really almost July when everybody went to camp. So you had like this 6-month period where nothing went on. So George, usually sometimes in May, he would either try and make a big trade or do something to occupy about a week or 2 weeks' time of letting people know that the Washington Redskins were there. And so one of the things he wanted to do is he contacted Vince McMahon, Sr., and he wanted to talk about putting Andre the Giant on the Washington Redskins so that he could bring him in to be a kick blocker. So I went to New York, and that was actually taken outside of Toots Shores in New York City. So we were up there, and we did this publicity picture, and it was, basically George's concept and philosophy to bring Andre in to block kicks and field goals and extra points. And heck, the guy's so darn big. I mean, his hair alone probably would have blocked 2 or 3. If you take a look at that picture.
Well, your hair back then, Joe, this is Woody. Your hair back then might have blocked 2 or 3 extra points.
It was Woody, it was the fastest. Thank goodness I still have some. That's all I could say. But that was what George. That's what George did, and it was a time when he always wanted people to think about the Washington Redskins. He was an incredible marketer, a very unique character. And to be honest with you, I think it took a lot longer for him to get into the Hall of Fame than he really should have been.
I want to take you back a little farther than that. Every year at the Super Bowl, I run into the son of a guy that really helped you when you were at Notre Dame and created a lot of publicity for you. And I'm talking about a sports information director that was there forever. And
Roger Baldessari.
Yeah. And he, to the point of, and I don't know that many people remember this, he actually came to you and said, "Do you want to change your name?"
Well, what really happened, I mean, I'll try and give you a synopsis of the version. First of all, my junior year, we finished a really good year. I think we finished 2nd or 3rd in the nation. We lost to Texas that year, and so we wound up finishing, 2nd or 3rd. And then at spring practice, during that particular year, at practice one day, one of the Chicago writers sort of wandered up behind Roger and made the comment. He said, "Hey, Roger, is that Theismann like in Heisman?" And everybody laughed. Everybody went, "Ha, ha, ha." And then Roger sort of put that in his memory bank. And then the beginning of my senior year, he calls me in his office and he says, "Joe, how do you pronounce your last name?" I said, "It's Theismann." He said, "No, it's not." I said, "No, it's Theismann." He said, "No, it's Theismann." So I said, let me call my dad. So I call my father up and I say, "Dad, I got a question for you." He says, "Hey, fire away, Joe." I said, "Dad, tell me, how do you pronounce our last name?" And there's like this dead silence on the phone for about 30 seconds. And my dad comes on and says, "Are you all right?" He said, "I mean, you don't know how to pronounce your last name. What's going on?" I said, "Look, I'll explain it later, Pop. Just tell me, how do you pronounce your last name?" He said, "Theismann." I turned to Roger. I said, "Hey, my last name's Theismann." He said, "Joe, I want to tell you something. There's a trophy out there called the Heisman Trophy. Goes the best college football player in the country. We think you have a chance to win the trophy. We're not just going to count on your athletic ability nor the reputation of the University of Notre Dame. But we think by just simply changing the pronunciation of your last name from Theismann to Theismann to rhyme with Heisman, we can get you that trophy." And that's how we wound up becoming Joe Theismann.
Yeah, I always thought that was a fascinating story because someone who came along a little bit later, they said, "Is your last name Dorsett or Dorset?"
That's right.
And it didn't rhyme. It didn't rhyme with anything. It was
right.
No, but it managed to made him the time. Maybe that's it. It was too much of a rhyme.
Hey,
So really, I really think that because it was such a coincidence that the names were so similar, I really feel like when the media looked at the whole aspect of the promotion that was going on, I don't think they wanted a media quote-unquote gimmick to dictate who won it. And certainly Jim Plunkett deserved it that year, but you had Archie Manning out of Mississippi, Dennis Summit out of UCLA, Chuck Hickson out of SMU, Denny Pastorini out of Santa Clara, Rex Kern out of Ohio State. I mean, we had a whole myriad of guys that could have been very capable of winning it. But Jimmy won it that year, and it was sort of fun, and it's a story I tell all the time in my presentations because it's really who I am.
Hey, Joe, you played the position. You watch and analyze quarterbacks for a living. Do you think Peyton Manning is still capable of winning a Super Bowl?
I think Peyton's not going to be able to do it alone. I think it's going to depend a lot on the people around him. I know Demarius Thomas is not happy because he's been franchised. I know Julius Thomas has gone to Jacksonville. I thought that might be a major loss for them. The football team is going to look different. You know, how much of Gary's offense will be run? How much of Peyton's offense will be run? He's 39 years old. Will he have to learn a bunch of new things? Not that he's incapable of it, but, you know, what system's going to be in place? I think it's going to be tough for the Denver Broncos to win a world championship. I think there's been a lot of change outside of Peyton. It's going to be a challenge for him this year. New coach, new coaching staff, possibly a bit of a new concept on offense. You know, Peyton, we saw towards the end of last year, is just he's not the same football player he was 5-6 years ago, and nobody is. At 39, you know, you're not what you were at 34, 35 for him. I think Peyton will do everything he can to make this offense efficient. I think he's going to struggle throwing the ball down the field, again, just because of his age and the wear and tear on his body. And, you know, Sonny Jurgensen told me a long, long time ago, when I played with Sonny for the Redskins, we talked about throwing, and he said, the arm has so many throws in it, and when it runs out of throws, there's no refilling it. And I found that out. I actually threw defensive drills for teams up until I was 50 years old. You know, the New York Giants and the Baltimore Ravens, when they played in the Super Bowl in 2000. That week of the Super Bowl, Brian Billick's a very close friend who happened to be the coach of the Baltimore Ravens. I threw defensive drills for the Ravens on Wednesday afternoon during practices for the Super Bowl. And you know, I mean, they wouldn't have put me out there as a joke, and I felt like I could throw pretty well at that time. But you reach a point where you just can't throw anymore.
Yeah, we saw that with two of the greatest, best known, and that was Joe Namath and Johnny Unitas. I mean, Johnny Unitas didn't have an arm left when he quit playing.
I will say this, though, real quick. I am thrilled that Peyton continues to want to come back. I was never given the opportunity to make a decision to leave the game. I left the game under different circumstances, but you talk about Jerry Rice, who everybody thought went too long, or Joe Montana, who thought went too long. You mentioned, you know, Joe Namath maybe going a little too long. Johnny hanging on, winding up in San Diego. What people come up to me all the time and say, why would Peyton do this? He has everything. It has absolutely nothing to do with what you have in your life. It has to do with who you are as a person, and the competitive fire continues to burn. We saw it with Brett Favre. And I'm delighted that, you know, Peyton says, hey, look, I want to come back and do it again. Good for him. Good for him.
So we're talking about the game today, and let's turn to your team. Mike Shanahan, who everybody's familiar with here, and Les is very close friends with him, that really didn't work out. The RG3 experience has not really worked out. Now Gruden's in there. They're talking about even drafting. There's been talk about Washington even drafting another quarterback. I mean, what is going on with your team?
Well, I think it's finally their stability in the front office. Scott McCloughan has come in and become the general manager. I think is an excellent move. We've added some people to the staff that I think will be efficient. Matt Cavanaugh coming in, I think, is probably one of the best additions. He's going to coach the quarterback position. Last year, Jay did it. And even Mike. You know, if you talk to Mike, it's so hard to be able to be the head coach, to be the play caller, to be the coordinator, and try and coach the position, especially during practice. Because, you know, you have so many other things that you have to be conscious and aware of. And I think the addition now of a Matt Cavanaugh will make a difference. The question is going to still be, how good will Robert be? How good will Robert Griffin III wind up being? And he's going in as the designated starter, but I believe there'll be a sense of competition. And I think they will draft a quarterback. I doubt seriously if it will be Marcus Mariota, because Marcus Mariota, to me, is still a project. The best situation for Marcus Mariota to wind up in would be to go someplace, sit a year or two, learn how to be a professional quarterback, because the systems he ran in college are vastly different. By his own admittance, he's never called plays in a huddle. And so with that in mind, I think you see the same thing in Marcus that you saw in Robert. Hopefully he will now be comfortable enough to be able to work out of a pocket and be able to run the offense the way Jay wants him to do it. But I think all the other pieces are in place. The defensive line needs to be upgraded. They're doing that a little bit in free agency.
But Joe,
I think the defensive line will be where they go in the draft.
Joe, I have to interrupt you there, because what you said was so important. I mean, when you were coming into the league, and you mentioned all those guys from Pastorini to Plunkett, they did sit for a while. And now, because of the investment, those quarterbacks are all being rushed into lineup. Would RG3 Robert have been better off if he had observed for a while and worked under both Kyle and Mike Shanahan and not been rushed into playing?
And maybe listen to Mike more instead of listening to his parents and the owner.
Well, Mike made the commitment to go after Robert. And what they did, Mike and Kyle did, is they actually modified the offense in his rookie year to allow him to do some of the things he did in college and, of course, implement what Kyle and Mike wanted. It was a great blend. They made it to the playoffs. Robert was Rookie of the Year, but then he got hurt. I think what Mike had to deal with was a young man who wanted to play so bad, but had never, ever dealt with the frustrations of the injuries and rehabilitation that he had to go through at this level and under this microscope. I know it was a great challenge for Mike to deal with Robert. I've heard the things that he said, and I know the problems they had. And, Robert had issues with Jay last year. Robert, when he came back, the first day of training camp in Mike's last year, I'm standing out there at practice, and I walked up to Robert. I said, do you realize you're pouting? Because Mike is doing everything he can to protect you as, number one, their starting quarterback, number two, a person, and number three, their investment. He's trying to do everything he can to protect you, but Robert felt like he wanted to go. And with that in mind, it became a very contentious situation. And it was just a bad relationship after that. But I know Mike had Robert's best interest, and Robert he wants it so bad. He wants to be able to play so bad. He wants to be able to prove to people so bad. I think sometimes that the desire gets in his way. To answer your question in a roundabout way, I think in Robert's case, I don't believe that sitting would have been that good for him. I think staying healthy was the key to reason why he got set back in where he was. If he was able to continue to grow in Mike's system, and they were able to work with him and morph him into a little bit more of a pocket passer, take away a little bit of the running game so that he'd be a little bit more protected, I think he would have been able to be much more efficient than where he is today, stopping and starting. Just last year, 6 games are gone, dislocated ankle. Year before that, rehab in the off season. It's hard to grow and learn at the quarterback position when you're in a rehabilitation state. The best way you learn, the best way you grow is to be able to play in practice. And Robert hasn't been able to do that over his 4 years.
Hey, Joe, really, really appreciate your time, and hoping we can get a hold of you during the football season. Can we give you another call?
Absolutely. I'd love to, guys. And
right.
I say hello to everybody, and I want to wish everybody a very safe and happy Easter. And it seems like a weekend for some reason today here on Good Friday, because a lot of people are off and enjoying the weekend. But I hope it's a safe holiday for everybody.
With you being here, it has been a good Friday for us.
Yes.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
You're so sweet.
Hey, we'll talk to you soon. That's Joe.
When you go to buy a car, what do you really want? You probably want a lot of cars to choose from. And you want the dealership's best price. Not some starting price or target price, the best price. And you want it immediately, not after hours of negotiating. And you want a salesperson who doesn't get paid more if you spend more. Because, well, you don't want to spend more. Well, you're in luck. John Elway wants all of those things too. Better yet, John Elway wants you to have all of those things too. Come see us or click on elwaydealers.com.